Tim Kilduff, and this is Business Matters. Business Matters is an HCAM-produced show focusing not only on businesses in Hopkinton, but more importantly, the people who run those businesses and manage those businesses. Today I have with me Cindy Shea, the owner of Curves in Hopkinton. Hi, Cindy.
Hi, Tim.
You know, there's really so much to talk about because the work that you do cuts across the issues of fitness and wellness, and yet on the other hand, you're running a small business. So maybe we can start by having you tell us a little bit about why you decided to get into running a small business. Maybe that's the place to start. Then we can talk a little bit about your passion about fitness and training and that sort of thing.
Well, I've always had a passion for fitness and also empowering women. I've always been I was a cheerleading coach for several years and decided that I could do this on a regular basis. So I taught aerobics for several years when my children were young, and then got into the secretarial field as a school secretary. So I decided, you know what, there's something more to life than this. Although I enjoyed the children, I enjoyed working at the school, I just felt that it was, something else out there for me. So when I turned 50, I said, you know what, I'm going to go out and I'm going to pursue the career that I've always wanted. So that career being fitness. I started working out again, going to several different gyms, and most of the things in the area were, the $10 a month type gyms. So I said, I'm going to start there. And luckily I was, well aware of how to exercise myself. I didn't need a lot of guidance. So I said, you know what, I can do this. So that's when I decided I was going to pursue getting my personal training certification. And just as I was thinking of doing that, a friend of mine from school came up to me and she said, Cindy, they're closing Curves in Medway. I said, no, they can't. I said, so as a result, I called my husband right away and I said, honey, I said, they're going to close the Curves right in Medway. I said, it's right in our town. I don't have to go far at all. He said, honey, go talk to her. I said, really? I said, are you sure about that? And he's always been a businessman, so I knew he'd gear me in the right direction. And so I came home that night and I said, honey, I think I really want to do this. And I said, it's a perfect opportunity. I'll have my own place, my own boss. And he said, this is definitely right up your alley. This is definitely something that you've always wanted to do and pursue. I said, awesome. I said, what do I need to do? He said, come home, we'll discuss exactly what you need and what you need to ask the previous owner. So I did. I went to her and I said, give me a few years of tax returns, and your membership list as to who you have. But when I first walked into the club, she had signs on all the machines. So it was for sale. $100 here, $100 there,
Oh, wow.
$50 for that machine. I said, Mary Ellen, you have to change that right now. I said, the only way I'm going to be able to purchase this is if you stop all your sales. I said, you're telling your members that you're going to close the doors, but yet you want me to purchase the club. I said, I cannot purchase the club if you're looking to sell the equipment. She said, okay. So needless to say, before I even gave her my answer, I told her to take all the signs down, because I didn't want the members to go to other clubs either. I didn't want to lose any memberships.
Right.
And so she did. And I told her what I needed for a business plan and to see if this was definitely going to be worth it or not. And so she gave me all that information. My husband and I sat literally at the dining room table for 2 weeks straight, put out a business plan. I had full support from him and my children, and the rest
But
is history.
that first decision, going in and saying take the signs off, that was instinct, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about, because you come at this, I understand the business plan, and we'll talk about that, but you talked about personal training certification. What's that like?
Correct. Well, it's a matter of, knowing all the machines, really understanding the physiology of the body, and making sure that, you're teaching the members how to be safe. Okay? So you want to make sure that they're working out correctly and they have a proper nutrition. So Curves actually has both that. They have the coaching on hand, they have the nutrition background, and they also have the individualized, coaching, which is really important.
In a competitive businesses, that duality is not necessarily the case, is it?
Not at all. Not at all. Because in a regular gym, you're going to also sell personal training memberships too.
Right.
So
Okay.
packages.
Yeah.
So as a result, we don't have that, because you automatically have the coaching attached to your membership, which is great because you have the one-on-one all the time, every time someone comes in.
Passion,
Mm-hmm.
fitness,
Right.
personal training,
Mm-hmm.
and then tell us a little bit more about this development of this business. It sounded like you had a pretty good coach
Yes, I did.
to help you through that process.
I did. My husband is, like I said, he's always been a businessman, and he works for Needham Bank. So needless to say, he's always been my biggest cheerleader. Definitely.
He's sort of has that organizational sense
Yes.
about him.
Yes, I'm very organized too, though, as a secretary. So I know how important it is to keep control of the paperwork and make sure that things come in and smoothly go out the way they need to also.
So you decide to move on the opportunity that was presented to you.
Yes.
Had you thought about expansion plans at that point, or were you just so excited and
Not
so
really.
focused?
I was very excited about just running the club, and luckily I had a great staff too. So the staff that was already there wanted to stay, and they wanted to keep their hours, which was great for me because I was working full-time anyway. And to be able to have the close time between 1 and 3 o'clock, that gave me the opportunity to come in after school and work the afternoon hours and get used to, and knowing some of my members that way too.
I must tell you, thinking about this discussion, the issue of staffing
Right.
never crossed my mind.
Oh yeah.
How in your first location,
Yes.
how many people did you have to be concerned with or manage?
I would say 6 to be comfortable. So it was, 3 women for the morning shift and 3 women for the afternoon shift. So if I ever went below that, I would always start looking already for another staff member.
And how are they spread over the week? What are the hours, for example, that you?
6 to 1 or 7:30 to 1 in Medway. Here I open at 6 o'clock though, every day of the week.
That's where the demand is. I bet you have people come in at 6 o'clock in the morning.
We sure do.
Wow.
And that's for me, the best time for me to work out too. So I've enjoyed opening in Medway.
So already you think about this. There's the fitness and training component.
Right.
There's the business plan. Now you have to worry about staffing, and it would seem to me, as an outsider, that you're in a rather competitive business. There are lots of people out there saying that they can help people with their fitness levels.
Correct. And I don't look at it that way, just because I want to stay focused on my own club. What I look at more so is the fact of keeping the women that I have and making sure that they're happy and that they're enjoying coming. And as a result, it just so happens in October of this past year, I was in the top 2 in Massachusetts as having the largest amount of members.
Really?
Attendance, yes.
In there are how many? Do you have any sense of how many curves there are in Massachusetts?
There
Approximately?
are approximately 30 right now.
Well, good for you.
Yeah.
Did that bump up in March?
Just in this area, I want to say the Metro West area.
30 in Metro West.
30, yes. And
Wow.
a little bit going into Boston. So can't really see too much in the outside, in the north and west side of Massachusetts, but definitely from Metro West into Boston, there are 30.
What distinguishes what you do at Curves as opposed to competitors? Because I would imagine that word competitors encompasses an awful lot of businesses.
Right, right. Well, we offer a little bit more than what your normal gym would offer. Like I said before, too, we have the automatic coaching on hand, whereas a lot of gyms will just bring you in, maybe show you some machines if you ask, or just, send you on your way and expect you to know how to use the cardio equipment, know how to use the weight training, and a lot of people don't, especially women. Think about it.
That's really interesting. How much educating do you have to do when somebody decides that, when somebody joins?
As far as
what motivates them to do that
Right.
to begin with?
Okay.
And then two, once they're motivated, what kind of training do you have to take them through?
We stick with that person one-to-one for at least 3 sessions, and then we actually have classes now too, so there are more instructions to do in between the machines, whereas before it was literally just walk in place. So now that they've brought Jillian Michaels into the picture, she's our spokesperson now.
Oh.
So yes, she has come up with calisthenics, so to speak, in between the machines. So this is something that I actually implemented when I first started at Curves in Medway. So my 6 a.m. class, I always had a following of ladies that would come, and we would do additional workouts in between the machines.
I've wondered about that myself because my perception or what I understood about Curves was,
Right.
Machine to machine.
Correct.
And I always wondered about that because it
you're
seemed
actually
to me
doing.
that would not have been enough for a really motivated person, but
Correct.
you've changed that formula.
That's correct. And reason for doing that is you're working all your major muscles when you're using the machines, and you're then now using the smaller muscle groups when you're doing the calisthenics in between.
So now you have to have some understanding of anatomy.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
What are some of the challenges? And I want to talk to you too about this expansion into Hopkinton and in your experience here, because obviously we're sitting here and that's
Right.
of major interest to the HCAM viewers. But
Right.
what are the challenges of running a small business, and particularly yours?
I would say the challenges are making sure that you have proper staffing. I mean, because that's
Yeah,
huge.
yeah.
My staff is awesome. I can't say enough about them. But it is a continuous of training too. So things do change as years go on. And so with the Jillian Michaels workouts, I have to make sure that everyone is trained properly and knows how to do all the exercises the way they want us to teach our members. And also, making sure that I have enough members to run the business. I mean, that's huge. So what I would like to do now that I'm retired from school is to be able to get out to some of the local corporations and into their wellness program and let them know exactly what Curves is all about.
The staffing issue, I would imagine I get that, but now how do
Yes.
you balance this the sort of that staffing issue, you've got to run a business too.
Correct.
There's a whole other set of processes I would think that you have to pay attention to.
Correct. So even though I have staff, covering the hours, I still go into the club during those times too. So when I know it's a busy time, I make sure that I'm there. If I know that we have appointments coming in, I'll also come in, and sometimes I handle the appointment myself, face to face. This way they see, me as an owner being there a lot. And to me, that's important. I see a lot of curves that have, the absentee owners. And that's difficult.
Have you been able to transfer this, what appears to be somewhat of a personal philosophy?
Right.
Have you been able to transfer that throughout the system, the curve system at all? People must be paying attention to what you're doing, because it seems like that formula is the right formula.
I do believe so, because, and this is how I knew that Hopkinton was going to be available, my director was visiting my Medway site, and she told me that the owners here were about to end their franchise agreement. So that's when she came to me and she said, "Cindy, you're doing such a great job in Medway. What do you think about opening or continuing the curves in Hopkinton?" I said, "Absolutely." I said, "Let me go talk to them." So I did pretty much the same thing that I did in Medway, and I just came and, I discussed it with them, and we had a few meetings and, things like that. So.
But now there's another element. You used the word director. So here's this independent operation, really, but yet there's some corporate structure somewhere.
Absolutely.
That provides what?
Well, they provide training, okay, hands-on training. Although when I first, became an owner, I went to a 4-day training in DC. So that was really the bulk of my training. And then when we brought in Curves Complete, which is the nutrition program, I had a separate certification on that. So that was a matter of probably a good 48 to 60 hours of studying and test taking for that particular program.
Again, what I'm struck by is this balance.
Okay.
The nutrition part of it, the dedication to running a small business, this sort of corporate identity that you really serve under. That's really kind of an intricate thing to balance.
Right.
So you heard about the Hopkinton opportunity.
Right.
Prior to that, one, did you know much about Hopkinton? And then, more importantly, what's been your experience? What sort of feel do you have for the community?
I don't know a lot about Hopkinton when I first came here, so obviously I wanted to learn a little bit more. Once I did decide to, to buy this Curves, and I have a few friends that live in town and in Holliston also, and from what I've known as a cheerleading coach too, because we used to cheer against Hopkinton.
Pretty good program here.
It is. Yeah. It is. And so I just figured that being as close as it was to Medway, it would definitely be a similar opportunity for me.
So has Hopkinton presented a good business opportunity?
Yes, absolutely.
What's the response been like?
Well, I haven't gotten out to some of the corporations, because there's definitely more corporations in Hopkinton than there are in Medway. So that's what I'm really looking forward to right now.
When women come in the door, what are they? What motivates them? Let's focus on them a minute.
Sure.
Because you have to do something, right? I mean, the first action is to decide you're going to do something, I suppose, and then you got to walk in the door.
Correct.
What's your experience in terms of what's motivating women to decide to do something of this nature?
I think just by me being there and greeting them as the owner, because I do feel like I, walk the walk, talk the talk, so to speak. And I think it's important for them to see that my staff and myself are fit also. And to let them know that this program really will work for them if they do it the way we instruct them to. So
What's
That's key.
your sense of the state of people's fitness? We read a lot
Right.
about obesity, and
Right.
I'd be interested in your thoughts on this too, because we hear a lot about it, but we continue to hear a lot about it. It doesn't, and there are lots of programs all over the place, but I don't see a fundamental change. We can't take on everything in the country, but I
Right.
don't see a fundamental change in America. Is that your sense?
Well, I feel too it really stems from childhood. I mean, if you think about it, a lot of it is out of habit and what we get used to. So if you're bringing up your children to overeat or make sure that they eat everything that's on their plate and overfilling that plate, then of course, if you're not familiar with it from the start, and now the schools are really trying to implement that, just in the cafeteria alone. But there is still so much processed food out there that people don't realize that they're really overdoing it, And portion control. Portion control is huge.
It's
So-
not.
I think they're starting to come back a little bit, like on sodas. At least the soda machines aren't in the
Right,
schools
right.
anymore, things like that. But again, it's just that everyday living, everyday life of, how to be able to control what you're putting in your mouth, how much exercise you're getting. But now we've got things like, the Fitbit.
Right.
There's so many things on the website right now that you can download different programs, and it will record exactly what you eat as long as you put all that information in. So you have to hold yourself accountable. And that's what I tell my members too. I want them to hold themselves accountable for things.
So again, another little element, and that is you need to stay. I would think you would need to stay in tune, up to date. You've talked about Fitbit
Correct.
in other sort of techniques. You have to stay current with that as well, I would think.
Absolutely.
How much time do you spend on that, researching, or is it just a general sense of awareness?
It's a combination of both. It's definitely a combination. I feel like it's a lot has to do with awareness, like you said, and what other people are doing, what other people are using. And my children help a lot too, because they're, definitely in the fitness field too. I mean, they don't work in the fitness field, but they all belong to a gym. And I ask them questions all the time too. So
Do you in the work? I can understand. It's relatively easy to understand a system, a process, the physical part of it. But I would assume that a lot of what you and your staff do is to work on the sort of the mental aspects, the psychological
Correct.
aspects.
Correct. And that's where I feel like if we don't talk about it or talk through with our members, then they're not going to hear it from us. Because if they come in and all we talk about is what they did the night before, or what programs they saw on TV, or what the latest show is, with Dancing with the Stars or something like that. Because trust me, the members do it themselves. They have those conversations. So I feel like if we start that conversation of you need to come 4 to 5 times a week, you need to make sure that you're drinking plenty of water, you need to make sure you're getting plenty of protein in your diet. If we don't constantly instill that into them, they're not going to hear it from anywhere else.
What's the most exciting part of what you do, of running these two small businesses? What's the most exciting thing?
Is to know that people are getting results. You know,
Which you can measure.
absolutely. And I had a contest going on in both clubs from the end of October, from Halloween through New Year's. And I just did someone's measurements yesterday. She lost 12 pounds and 7.5 inches
Wow.
from that time frame. And for someone to be able to do that during the holiday season and still be able to lose, that to me was incredible.
You know, I'm struck, and I kept saying this, but I'm struck by the fact that what you do and the business that you run is more complicated than I thought, and I think more complicated than most people think
Right.
when they think of curves. It's much more dynamic. It's much more personal.
Right.
On the other hand, it appears to me that you've done things right. You've got the fitness background. You've got a good sense of a business plan. You're able to deal with corporate entities and a lot of other aspects. So it seems to me like you're doing a terrific job.
Thank you.
We really appreciate having people like you in this community. This is a very health conscious community, Hopkinton is.
Right, right.
And you're going to do nothing but help build that brand. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. You're welcome.
Well, another interesting discussion, another interesting person, another interesting business. We're happy that HCAM is focused on bringing programs like this to the community, particularly when they focus on people and businesses that are concerned about the health and well-being of Hopkinton. So for now, let me say goodbye, and we look forward to talking with you in the near future.